This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it's Friday, December 22nd, 2023. We will be, Christmas is 3 days away. We've got headed into Christmas Eve on Sunday, Christmas Day on Monday. We'll be back broadcasting next week on Thursday and Friday, 27th and the 28th. So we're going to take a little bit of break too and reorganize and recharge. We'll be back for the New Year's week, again, probably on a limited schedule. And then we'll get back at it right after the first of the year. I'll have a Substack created in that time. I'm going to try to do some revamping on social media, get a little bit more active on social media, and look forward very much to 2024 being a better year. And more would be an election year. It's going to be very interesting. So we're going to follow it very closely. Let's get into the, thank you for joining us here on thetruthcentral.com. And you can follow me on Twitter, now is X, at Corsi Jerome 1, CORSIJEROME 1, all together, all small letters. First story I want to cover is that the Epoch Times today, it has a major article that there's a rise of support among blacks for Trump. Now this is pretty interesting because the one lead person in this, they begin with talking about this Mark Fisher, who was a co-founder of a Black Lives Matter group in Rhode Island, and he endorsed Trump. So I knew I was going to pay a price for it, Mr. Fisher told the Epoch Times, but I felt like the benefit of doing it far outweighed the cost of me playing safe. Now, this is a pretty startling report. You can see it happening. I mean, Trump was already making inroads into the African-American community. And what's happening is the realization that the Democrats are doing nothing for blacks except getting them to vote for them. You know, they pump up this George Floyd and they exploit blacks. They make it a cause of, trying to rub raw the racial tensions, as Saul Alinsky said, Barack Obama's mentor. So the polls are turning because the polls are finding that more and more Black Americans are willing to break ranks with the Democratic Party. So in some surveys, as much as 20% of the black vote is going to go to Trump. Now, for the Democrats, this is a very bad news. And as Americans begin to feel the economic conditions worsening under Biden, they're going to worsen in the lower economic brackets, and the middle class are going to get pounded. Bill Gateses don't care. They're billionaires. What difference does it make to them if inflation goes up a little bit? But to the average person, it means a difference between what you can buy, what you can feed your family, etc. And the Democrats have been encouraging just these insane policies. I want to refer to an article that's by David Capellian in WorldNet Daily. I used to, for many years, from 2004 till about 2016, I wrote for WorldNet Daily. I was doing almost daily articles. And David Capellian, who is the managing editor at WND, I've always admired his work. He had written a book years ago called The Marketing of Evil, and he is now he's now updated that. And it's a very, very good book. I'm going to put here for Chris, the producer, I'm going to try to get him. This is the website which I'm looking at, Chris. You might want to post it right there because David Capellian I want to give him a little bit of a boost on this new book he's coming out with. His writing is brilliant. I mean, he says, I'm just going to quote a paragraph or two from what he wrote. He said, as recently as a generation ago, this nation's dominant culture was, however imperfect, essentially moral, patriotic, and Judeo-Christian. Politically, of course, there was the continual tug of war between the two major parties, traditional Democrats who championed liberal policies like taxing the rich, a higher minimum wage, more gun control, a larger social safety net, and legalized abortions, and Republicans who favored less government intervention, more individual liberty, free market capitalism, and protecting the unborn. But despite the contentious battles and pendulum swings over who controlled the White House and Congress, America was safe, secure, and confident, her freedoms intact, and her culture still decent and sane. So now we could go into the fast forward, and we're looking at this steaming inferno of unprecedented madness. Democratic politicians today overwhelmingly favor late-term abortion up to the very moment of birth, known formerly as infanticide. They encourage children too young to drive or to vote to have their breasts and sex organs amputated in pursuit of gender transition. That is both delusional and impossible, which leads to staggering rates of depression and suicide. The same mass hysteria likewise leads them to promote de facto destruction of women's athletics worldwide by allowing men to compete with women and permit countless females to be raped in prison by male inmates claiming to be trans women. He's right. This is insane. He is exactly right. And Chris, if you can find the cover to his book, there you go. That's David Kapelian right there. His book is Marketing Evil, and you can find it easily on Amazon. Marketing Evil. We can just show the cover. It was a brilliant book. He's coming out with an expanded version of it, and I'm going to have to get a hold of it and read it because I've always admired how David Kapelian has analyzed the culture wars and the marketing of evil. So this is a fundamental concept. When you think about what happened with the homosexual movement and the LGBT, there was a decision made in the 60s that they wanted to change the marketing. In the 50s and 60s and 70s, there was an idea that we'd say, we're gay and just put up with it. It was very in your face. Well, they decided that strategy wasn't going to work. So they, decided to change it. Say, well, look, let's remarket it and say, there's just these two men who love each other, these two women who love each other, these two little bears. Are you going to really break them apart? They are in love with each other. Okay, well, they don't tell you the reality of gay or lesbian sex. You certainly don't get to see a gay parade with these naked men, whooping each other and coming through in front of children and everybody else with these bizarre sexual affectations and crude demonstrations of their sexuality in public. The homosexual act is not a particularly palatable one, not a particularly pleasant one. I mean, I can't, it's hard to even imagine, get your heads around, what these homosexuality and lesbianism are really about. But we've always had a small percentage of the population who have been LGBT plus. But now the difference is they're past the marketing. Now they're going back to the hard messaging. In other words, they're today with transgenders in story hours for children. They're in our face saying, celebrate this. You must celebrate us. We must be special. We're going to have a rainbow flag and we're going to fly it over the State Department. We're going to put it in Islamic countries and fly it over the State Department. Okay, so this is insanity. And that's what David Kapelian is good at pointing out. He says the new righteousness largely consists simply of being a victim, oppressed class, members of which are therefore implicitly held to a different behavioral standard than the wicked colonialist oppressors and their privileged progeny, especially if they're white. White's not a color. People of color does not mean white anymore. I thought white was a color. Since Marxism, however artfully disguised, has become so prevalent in American education, culture, and government, it must be useful to pause and consider the source. And then he explains how Marx hated God. Marx was really not an atheist. He hated God. He knew God existed, but he hated him. So Paul Kenger, in a very good book called The Devil and Karl Marx, revealed Marx's poems and plays are rife with pacts with the devil, suicide pacts, violence, vengeance, fire, despair, destruction, and death. Marx waxed poetic about, quote, hellish vapors and about the prince of darkness, selling a, quote, blood dark sword that shall stab unerringly within thy soul. Of heaven I've forfeited, I know it full well, my soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell. That's the kind of poetry that Marx was writing. And Marx was insane, and his whole theory failed. Workers of the world did not unite in 1848. There was not an overthrow of capitalism. Instead, capitalism produced wealth, and the wealth was shared with labor increasingly, especially with the labor movement in the 20th century. We're seeing now a destruction, an intentional destruction, and that's what my book is about, which is the truth about Neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. What these people lead to is anarchy. It's destruction, and they know it. This is the woke have been programmed to destroy. They're incapable of creating. When communism takes over, you get millions of people who die, and that's what is happening here. We're getting a death cult. As I say, the climate change movement is a death cult because now they're even saying because we exhale carbon dioxide that we are the cause of our own destruction. And so the ultimate movement here for the woke is to say, let's not only kill babies, let's have euthanasia. And why don't you people all do us a favor and just kill yourselves now? We don't want to have to feed you, and you're worthless to us anyway because Bill Gates are all transhumanists. They're going to create the new Ubermensch, Nietzsche's superhuman being. And what they do is they pervert language. They make evil good. They make all this perversion normal. Okay, I want to read a paragraph here from Thucydides when he talked about how language is perverted. This was from the Peloponnesian War, which occurred, before Christ, and it was a war between Sparta and Athens, and Sparta actually won. The ordinary, and that was remarkable because the Athenians had the much more advanced cultures. The Spartans were basically fighters. They had a different kind of almost socialist structure, and they did beat Athens because Athens engaged in a whole series of insanities as their democracy fell apart. So what Thucydides wrote is he said the ordinary acceptation of words in relationship to things was changed as men thought fit. Reckless audacity came to be regarded as courageous loyalty to party. Prudent hesitation as specious cowardice. Moderation as a cloak for unmanly weakness. And to be clever in everything was to do naught in anything. Frantic impulsiveness was accounted a true man's part, but caution and deliberation a specious pretext for shirking. The hot-headed man was always trusted, his opponent suspected. He who succeeded in a plot was clever, and he who had detected one was still cleverer. On the other hand, he who made it his aim to have no need of such things was a disputer of party and scared of his opponents. In a word, both he that got ahead of another who intended to do something evil, and he that prompted to evil, one who had never thought of it, were alike commended. That's the point, is that these people are celebrating evil, and they're putting Satan on the throne of God and themselves on the throne of God. Now, Kapelian's book, he's written several really brilliant books, I think. The Sapping of the American Mind, Healing a Nation Broken by a Lawless Government and a Godless Culture, his Marketing of Evil. These are really excellent books, and I encourage everybody to take a look at them because they have over the years inspired me, and David and I have had many a conversation about the concepts that he has brought forward here, in which I'm in full agreement. Okay, I want to go to one more story, and I'm going to ask Chris to comment. I want to cover, so Trump is now in all of these different court cases, and I think the likelihood is the Supreme Court is going to throw out the Colorado 14th Amendment. What this is all about, it's called Lawfare, which is the left's using of law to destroy law with clever argumentation. Thucydides would have understood it as they pursue evil to essentially undermine law by using law. That's what this, Jack Smith is doing as the prosecutor on the federal level of Trump. And now Colorado, they all celebrate that Trump has taken off the ballot in Colorado as an insurrectionist because he supported the January 6th march to the Capitol. Well, the people who marched to the Capitol were upset that an election had been stolen. They were not trying to overturn the United States government. The 14th Amendment was after the Civil War, and it was giving blacks the rights under the 14th Amendment such that no state could take away their rights. What was going on at the time was that under the 13th Amendment, the slavery was ended. Under the 14th Amendment, states that were still imposing restrictions on voting on blacks, etc., were told that a state could not deprive anyone of their rights as a citizen under the Constitution of the United States. Now, the 14th Amendment said that insurrectionists could not hold federal office. Well, insurrectionists meant people who had participated in the Civil War fighting for the South. Well, Trump has not taken up arms against the government of the United States, nor has he been convicted anywhere as being an insurrectionist. That was decided by 4 judges, self-appointed judges, Democrats, who hate Trump. One of whom was related to the family of Archibald Cox, who was the Watergate prosecutor that Nixon fired. It was called the Saturday Night Massacre. He did it on a Saturday night, and it was a big furor among those who thought that Richard Nixon ought to be impeached. At any rate, what's going on with Trump right now is insane. He's being prosecuted, and the Fulton County DA in Georgia is saying that if they can convict Trump, they're going to imprison him. Now, this whole move to take Trump off the ballot and to imprison him and to indict him over and over and over again, as well as to have Giuliani have to pay $148 million because he dared to say the election fraud had occurred. And when there's obvious questions from the videos that were shown during the 2020 election that should have been investigated, our Department of Justice did nothing. Why? Because it was the Democrats stealing an election. So that's okay. Biden is not touched. That's okay. Why? Because he's a Democrat. And as such, he gets privileges. As Thucydides said, the law is different for those who are evil. Okay, so Harvard's president, this Claudine Gay, even the New York Times has written now a massive article on the amount she's plagiarized. But that's okay. She could be still president of Harvard and have a PhD because blacks can plagiarize. They can steal other people's writing, make it their own without attribution. That's okay to get a PhD. If you're a black, you can do that. And then you can be president of college of Harvard, which shows the extent to which our universities are corrupt. And the Department of Justice is supporting corruption as long as it's evil. The Department of Justice should be called the Department of Evil, promotion of evil, because that's what it is. Chris, would you like to comment?
Yeah, with a legion of doom, if you will. I wonder if Lex Luthor might not even like the way things are going. I mean, he was an arch supervillain, but at least he played by some rules here, you know?
More or less. But the point is, I think, you're making the point correctly. These people want to cause chaos. And that's the difficulty here. They want to destroy. They want to take down. Now, what's going on, I think, I'm seeing increasingly, I believe the UK and Germany are already pretty deeply into recession. And the price of gold today is $2,073. Now, it's holding above $2,000. an ounce. So this is a new technical level for gold's trading. So it's now got a support level at $2,000 an ounce. So when it goes below it, it seems to be bouncing right back up. And for 2 weeks consistently, gold is traded over $2,000 an ounce. It's now, these are all-time highs. And that's what I've been predicting, is that gold is going to hit a new all-time high. Get a copy of the book, because right now, everything I've written about in this book is happening. And the book is how, Chris will show it here on the screen, how the coming global crash will create an historic gold rush. You can get this from Swiss America. Swiss America is our sponsor. They've been our sponsor since we began this show. And their toll-free number is 1-800-519-6268 to get a free book, a free copy of How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. Dean and I wrote this together. Dean Heskin, the CEO of Swiss America. Toll-free number, once again, write it down, 1-800-519-6268. Get a free copy of the book. And on our website, take a look on the sponsors. Chris will show you how to navigate the website. At the very top, where our sponsors, if you click on that, you can get Swiss America on the drop-down tab. And with Swiss America, you can see the Walking Liberty $50 offer. Chris is showing it to you right now. The top sponsors, click down Swiss America, Walking Liberty $50 offer right there. You can get up to 250 of these coins. They're 90% or more silver. So the coins are being offered in a one-time offer, introductory offer for new people talking for the first time and buying for the first time from Swiss America. You can get 250 of these coins at a kind of a loss leader price, as Swiss America is selling them at just about what they're worth in silver. It's a good idea to have some gold and silver. Now, for those who can think seriously about investing, it's a good idea right now to have a lot of gold and silver, because Germany is seriously de-industrializing. You're finding that the entire global warming movement, which has largely destroyed the economy of Germany. Germany shut down its nuclear power plants in this year, 2023. Insanity. At the same time, when Russia had cut off the supply of natural gas because of the sanctions that EU had imposed upon Russia to try to bring Russia economically to its knees for attacking Ukraine. Now, the other sponsor I want to pay attention to is My Vital C, and we're going to be promoting next year this book, Live Longer and Better, which I've written with Chris Burries on My Vital C, which is carbon 60. I've been taking it for 4 years. It has, I believe, longevity features. It has features keeping your mind active, sleeping better. It's also formulations for dogs and cats who do love it. And I think you'll find that this is worth trying. My Vital C is a molecule. It's carbon 60. It's a molecule that has 60 carbon atoms around a nucleus that are in the form of a soccer ball. It's why they're called fullerenes, after Buckminster Fuller, because it looks like a geodesic dome. The molecule was discovered about 40 years ago. Chris Burries was at Rice University. It was discovered in Texas, and he was working with the Nobel Prize winners who discovered carbon 60. And what Chris Burries has done is he's created a company, co-founded it, that has found the purest, I believe, formulation of carbon 60 that you can get. It's in olive oil. You can get it in coconut oil and avocado oil. It is truly an excellent product. Okay, I want to move on to a couple more stories today. Israel's now broadening the assault in the Gaza, and it is heading south to root out Hamas. And as I read the reports today in the Israeli papers, the Israeli intelligence reports are out saying that they are systematically destroying Hamas, and that they are going to continue this operation until I believe they're done. Now, there are also reports showing Israel's used some massive weapons. some of these 2,000-pound bombs, evidently, which have really destroyed neighborhoods, created massive craters, and Israel has told the Palestinians to leave, to flee. Of course, Egypt's built a wall. Egypt does not want the Palestinians. These Palestinian people have been Marxist, wanting to destroy Israel. Every country they've been in, they've tried to overthrow the government, People's Liberation Army, the Palestinian Authority. They've now all surrendered and collapsed to Hamas. Hamas is in control. And Hamas is funded by Iran and is dedicated to kill Jews and to destroy the state of Israel. After the October 7th attack, when we saw the brutality, burning people alive, raping people, beheading people, torturing people, taking Jews hostage. I think there's still 150 or so Jews held hostage by Hamas. Hamas uses civilians as shields. They operate out of hospitals. Then they blame Israel for killing civilians. This is the Hamas control, and they have massive, massive tunnel structures. I've seen some of these tunnels. They're bigger enough for a tank to go through. And the idea was to have an army emerge from the tunnels and then head to the border to attack Israel as a surprise attack. The majority of the Palestinian people support the Hamas attack. And again, you can't have a solution to this problem of Israel's survival when countries like what they want to form in a Palestinian country, from the river to the sea, in other words, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, they want it all. They want to eradicate Israel. They want to kill the Jews. Now, how can you come to peace with these people? But I've watched now 40 years of our administrations, back to Jimmy Carter, trying to get peace in the Middle East by bringing the Muslims together with the Jews. Well, the Muslims happen to be radical Islamic terrorists, and they are not going to have a final peace with Israel because they want to destroy Israel. It's really that simple. Now, the United Nations is going to probably meet today, and it was postponed from yesterday because a proposal by the United Arab Emirates to give more aid to the Palestinians, more humanitarian aid. Well, the United States is in a dilemma, mostly because the Biden administration doesn't know what it wants to do. I know what the Biden administration wants to do. It's obvious. They give lip service to Israel, and they send Anthony Blinken over there, our genius Secretary of State, to tell Israel to stop fighting. Well, what Hamas wants is a truce, because Hamas will rearm in a truce. It will save itself. Hamas does not want this war to continue, because it will be set back perhaps permanently with Israel set out to destroy it. Israel's not going to restore the Palestinian Authority or Hamas easily to the Gaza. Israel is going to root out Hamas. They're killing the Hamas leadership, and they're seeking out the fighters. Of course, we'll run away and try not to be positioned as fighters. So the UN, which is traditionally anti-American these days, I don't know why we bother supporting the United Nations. As far as I'm concerned, I'd close it down and take the land and put it to some good use other than having this anti-American society meet and pass resolutions in New York while we're supporting the UN. It was a Marxist idea from the beginning. And it was not, you can't have world government. I don't think you'll ever have world government, because it'll just be centralized control. And they'll want to be totalitarian, want to have control over everybody's aspect of everyone's life. With the technology today, that's possible to achieve and becoming more possible every day. So Israel is going to be pressured and increasingly pressured the longer this war goes on. And Israel does not seem in a rush. Now, I think the war will probably go on at least 2 more months. And I think it's going to be systematic. Palestinians cannot get into Egypt because Egypt actually put up a wall. Some countries know that if you want to stop illegal immigration, you put up a wall. Of course, Biden doesn't know that. And right now, this whole resolution to fund Ukraine is stalling, both in the EU and here in the United States. It does not look like we will get a funding bill for Ukraine done before the New Year's holiday because Congress is largely out of session. And Chuck Schumer trying to jam this down the throats of the GOP in the Senate, being met by resistance. And the GOP, at least to some extent, Matt Gaetz and a few others are saying, if you don't secure the border, if you don't stop this flow of unfiltered, and who knows what we're getting, terrorists from Hamas, Chinese operatives of military age, we're not screening drug cartel, we're not screening anything coming across the border. And by the way, the dirty little secret here, I believe, is that the Department of Justice wants to keep the border open. The Department of Justice is not going after Biden corruption. Why? Because they like Ukraine remaining open for laundering money. I've been saying this for years, that the CIA is in the drug business. Not 2011, I caught HSBC laundering money. John Cruz, who was then a relationship manager for HSBC, that's a Hong Kong Shanghai banking corporation operating in New York throughout the United States, HSBC, was laundering money. And he had these thousands of pages where the bank would open up an account with someone's legitimate Social Security number, run millions of dollars through it for a few days, and then close the account. So the account had no balance at the end. It was a pass-through. I got contacted by the Department of Homeland Security and the Senate Permanent Investigating Committee. I turned over all this research, and HSBC was fined by the Department of Justice $1.9 billion, and nobody went to jail. The wire transfers, you cannot run a drug cartel without getting the money into a bank. You can't drive around trucks full of $100 bills. So therefore, we know the money laundering is being done by the major U.S. banks, major world banks. How do we know? Because the wire transfers are monitored by the Department of Treasury, by the National Security Agency, and a blind eye is turned to them. So the CIA has been in the drug business since the OSS was formed, during World War II, actually a little before, just in that period of time. And the governments of the world have been running the drugs. The opium trade, the British government was very involved in. The Iranian government at that time was involved in. The Netanyahu, Hassan Namazi, was one of the top fundraisers for John Kerry in 2004. The Namazi family owned a hospital in Iran where Valerie Jarrett was born, one of the top advisors to Obama. That hospital, the Namazi family, had shipping lanes all through Southeast Asia and China. The Namazi family was involved in taking the opium that had been produced in Iran and shipping it to China in conjunction with the British government for the opium wars in the 1800s. Governments are involved in the drug trade. While there's all this fentanyl coming into the United States, China, and the U.S. And if you think that we are trying to stop the drug trade, you're wrong. A lot of money in the drug trade. CIA gets a lot of money to operate off the books, which they can do their undisclosed secret operations, such as spying on Americans, which was not in the CIA charter. So why Harry Truman, 1 week after Jack Kennedy was assassinated, wrote a major editorial saying to rein in the CIA. Actually, I think closing it down might be a better idea. But then again, closing down the entire federal bureaucracy might be a better idea. And my solution to that has always been move it to the Mojave Desert or to Death Valley and let them have the Quonset huts and all the wind and solar they want. Okay, and the insanity here of where we have gotten as a nation with this massive bureaucracy that is not responsible for reporting to anyone. The Federal Reserve cannot control inflation. And so therefore it's quit trying. They will continue to pump money, printing it through 2024 to try to keep things propped up for Biden's reelection. The Democratic Party is actually going to take someone who is showing obvious signs of senior dementia and reelect him. I don't think this has a chance of working. And I think at the last moment, the Democrats are going to substitute someone like Michelle Obama, and she'll be the candidate. But we've got this progression going on. Chris, I think I'll give you one more chance. I invite you to say what you think here, because I want to do one final story, then we're going to wrap up for today.
Well, I thought about this whole thing when it comes to replacing Biden. I would say the Democrats might do that, and I know there was discussion about Michelle Obama here, but the thing about it is, I still think while she might garner the Oprah crowd, the people who would say, "Well, first female president, Barack Obama's wife, yay, that sounds good." I don't think she would win an electoral vote, win in the electoral college for a few reasons. But yes, the celebrity vote, you can't underestimate that as well. Then you think about Gavin Newsom, who's constantly shooting himself in the foot. But your Democrats can do no wrong in the eyes of the media thing might just work out in that respect. My thing is, here's what I'm guessing. If you put a Democrat in charge and things stay the way they are and they're going to get worse, that could put Republicans in charge for a very, very long time. So here's what might be happening. They're destroying Trump. They're loving it. But if he wins, the plan is, hey, just call him a racist for 4 years, cover the entire Republican tent with all those calls and make him look bad and try to twist what he says like they did the first 4 years. And then a Democrat will likely win the White House in 2028.
Well, I'd rather win 2024.
Well, I'm with you.
And the two I'm watching are Donald Trump and, Robert Kennedy Jr. Robert Kennedy Jr. is new to politics, and not all of his ideas are going to become comfortable to conservatives. But he's learning. He's being educated. And I think his stand on various issues, I think if he has a chance, he will investigate the murders of his father and his uncle.
Well, that's his plan, yes.
And I think that would be a good idea.
Right.
Okay, I'll have a new book on that, by the way, out in early next year.
Quick
on
question.
the assassination, yes.
Quick question for you. Considering that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could open up a lot of files to the public, or at least have access to them to solve these crimes, that could cause a lot of issues. How about this? The Epstein file, the supposedly 170 plus names are going to be released. I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be anybody important. All these people are going to have their names covered up. All the really big people who are very powerful and could be ruined by this are probably going to be able to hide their names.
Well, any story that has the potential of hurting Satan and the Democrats usually gets repressed.
Yeah, that's so. Keep an eye out for this to be a story that's claiming to be a story, but could turn out to be leaving more questions than answers.
Okay, so Julian Assange is now going to have his final appeal in February. Julian Assange has been imprisoned here now, I think going on to 4 years. And Julian Assange, of course, was WikiLeaks, and he published the stolen Democratic Party emails in 2016 from Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the head of the Democratic National Committee in 2016. The first drop of the emails showed that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary had rigged the 2016 Democratic primary, so Bernie Sanders had no chance of getting onto the ballot. Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned the opening day of the Democratic National Convention in 2016. Assange said he had more emails to drop. Then everybody said, what were they going to be? And this was going to be the classic October surprise released just before the election started. And at that point, by the way, I figured out that Assange had Podesta's emails. I was right. And of course, the Department of Justice thought I was the final contact that would prove I had a contact with Assange, gave it to Roger Stone, who gave it to Trump, and Trump influenced Assange to release the Podesta emails just before the election, which cost Hillary the election. That was the whole linchpin of the Russian collusion hoax. Now, first of all, I did not have a contact. Department of Justice said I had lied. They were going to indict me. They offered me a plea deal. I refused the plea deal, and they did not indict me. They were the liars. I told them Russia did not steal the Democratic Party's emails. Yesterday, an article came out. Again, it was largely ignored, saying that Seth Rich, this was from the attorneys representing Assange. The attorneys didn't make the statement, but someone close to the attorneys came out and said, I've been told by the attorneys that Seth Rich stole the emails. It had to have been. I've written on that extensively in my book, Coup d'etat, because just the electronic nature of how those emails were stolen, it could not have been done by a hack. It was done too quickly. Okay, so these stories come out, and this means that the entire Mueller investigation, or Mueller investigation, whatever you want to say, the name is a German name, but they don't like to say Mueller because that would be Heydrich Mueller, who was the Nazi head of their Gestapo-type CIA. And so they don't want to say Mueller. They want to say Mueller. Okay, well, Mueller, during the entire special prosecutor investigation, he was a special prosecutor. He spent his time in not running the group. A guy named Weissman ran the group. And Weissman, by the way, who was former U.S. attorney at a very high level, who is about as corrupt as you can get, was on MSNBC yesterday saying it's a good thing that Trump has finally been found to be an insurrectionist and he's removed from the ballot. Again, radical Democrats. They'll destroy democracy in the name of supporting democracy. Perversion of language, just like Thucydides pointed out, more than 2,000 years ago. It's been a human characteristic that is one of the worst features of human beings, this language perversion. And I just think it's a perpetual and unending struggle between good and evil. And what Satan's game is to take God and reverse the meaning of it. God does not want you to eat the fruit of the tree because God did not make this place perfect. We can make this place perfect, Satan says. If you'll just eat the tree, know what God knows. He doesn't want you to do that. And then we'll be in command here. Complete lie. God is in control here. And God's law is what works. Satan's perversion doesn't work. It produces destruction, produces gender confusion. It produces all the massive insanity we're seeing with the woke movement today. Okay, last story. This COP meeting, climate summit in Dubai, was a complete bust for the climate change movement. What the world is finding out, especially as inflation is beginning to grip the Western world, printing money. There's a credit bubble that's going to burst. May not burst in 2024, but it's going to burst. What we're finding out is that 1%, the top 1%, the wealthiest, the big countries, etc., are responsible for a massive percentage. This one study said 15% of all carbon emissions. The fact is that China is going to burn a lot of coal, and India is going to burn a lot of coal. That was made obvious in Dubai. They are not going to transition from wind and solar because they don't work. They can't even finance any longer any of these wind and solar plants because they're junk. They don't produce enough energy. They're too expensive to create. And the world is realizing that, again, the climate change movement was designed to get people to stop using hydrocarbon fuels. Now, this will be a depopulationist movement, and people are catching on to this. I see a story here by Bjorn Lomborg, who is saying 4 billion people. He's written some very good books on the environment and climate. 4 billion people are dependent on fossil fertilizer, that nitrogen fertilizers, not fossil fuel. No fossil ever made a barrel of oil that's naturally produced by the earth on an ongoing basis. It's abiotic oil. He said, without nitrogen fertilizers, 4 billion people will starve to death. It's time to call out the astoundingly destructive and misanthropic campaigners who want to stop oil. Okay, now that's the truth. It is a depopulation movement. Why is Assange in prison? Because he dared to tell the truth. Why is Bobby Kennedy a threat? Bobby Kennedy Jr.? Because, like his father, if he gets to the presidency, he has the opportunity to stop all this declassification. The classification. We need to declassify. We should not have government secrets. Because, again, this is a perfect way for the government to be nefarious, to assassinate Jack Kennedy and then cover it up. That's, again, Assange is in prison because he's dangerous to this corporate multinational state that wants to control the world with oligarchs who believe all the wealth of the earth belongs to them. The self-appointed Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates, who will be happy when you get atheism, you don't have any values. Everything's subjective. And so therefore, everything is a narrative. We can do like John. Let's imagine a world without borders. Let's imagine a world, without God. Well, let's imagine a world without John Lennon, because these are malwares. These are ideas that poison the brain. Talking about that, I'm also seeing discussions today. Foreign Affairs magazine's coming out with an article discussing about whether Russia is going to use tactical nukes in the Ukrainian war. It seems like probably not right now, but Russia has moved tactical nukes into Belarus. And if NATO continues to press into Finland, Sweden, and Ukraine, Putin may have had enough. And should NATO actually escalate, either with weaponry or decide they're going to send troops? I can't imagine. I think NATO's troops and the Pentagon could better hold a transgender parade in Berlin than they could fight a war against Ukraine. We seem to abandon this huge amounts of military equipment as mentally demented Joe Biden just pulled out one day. Our Pentagon is a mess. They can't account for trillions of dollars. With the amount of money being printed, we've just created a situation in which corruption is rampant. Okay, Chris, one final statement, then we're going to wrap up.
You add this to the fact that the Americans are putting together new defense pacts with countries like Denmark and all around the Baltic area. It's like, again, we discussed this, NATO and the U.S. are trying to provoke Russia, provoke Putin, either to create a bad guy or to cause maybe another or an elongated war, or maybe even a new Cold War to gain control.
They love wars. They love pandemics. They love anything that gives them greater control by disruption. These people want to destroy the current order to create their new world order, which would be, and they want us all to walk into enslavement willingly. And you are the problem. This is the Anthropocene. Human beings are destroying the world, so therefore just commit suicide. We'll call it euthanasia.
Well, it's a legal policy in Canada, and it's probably not long before other Western nations adopt this.
Soon to be here in a theater near you. Okay, so toll free, get a copy of this free book, 1-800-519-6268. Do talk to Swiss America. The stock market, don't leave your retirement savings in the stock market. Talk about getting some gold and silver into your IRAs and your 401ks. Swiss America will show you how to do it legally so you don't lose your tax status of tax advantage appreciation. In the end, God will win. God will win here too. The bottom line, and this is the Truth Central. My books are the truth about energy, global warming, and climate change. This trilogy, the Great Awakening trilogy I'm writing. The truth about Neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. The truth is what's going to set us free. Judge biblically. Judge woke by the fruit of the tree. And do you want to have more transgenders doing story hours for your children? Do you want to have your children instructed to get their sex organs chopped off or altered before they even reach puberty? I mean, it's a barbaric idea. Do we want to eat bugs? Have to use electric vehicles. All the electric vehicle battery companies are going broke. And all the major automobile companies have reduced by half or more their plans to produce electric vehicles in 2024. We don't have the charging stations. Of course, money was allocated for it in this, Inflation Reduction Act, which was a complete misnomer. Well, all that money probably got stolen too. So the point is, in the bottom line, this insanity is going to implode, and these people allowed will cause world wars. They don't care if billions of people die. They will push to use nuclear weapons. And when Iran gets nuclear weapons, as I've been writing since World Atomic Iran, 2005, Iran will be happy to use a nuclear weapon against Israel. The point is, this insanity is presenting you. Is this the world you want to live in? Because the Democrats will be happy to continue along this path until we are completely destroyed the capitalist culture, and they will do it largely through sex, because after this Frankfurt School, Marcuse, who was a major writer, a Jew who fled Nazi Germany, settled in California, and started writing anti-American books called Eros and Civilization. They decided the real Marxist revolution would be caused if we just embraced unlimited sex. Because, of course, what Marcuse did is combine Freud and Marx and said, in agreement with Freud, that our culture of capitalism, civilization, suppresses sexual desires in order to keep people working. And Marcuse said, work is ugly. The machines can produce the food. We can advance to a higher level. So this transhumanism idea took root going back to the 1930s and 1940s. In the end, God will win. God rules here. And God can pull the plug on this place anytime God decides to. And he pulls the plug on each of our lives eventually. No one gets out of here alive. The fundamental reality of this place is spiritual. It's not physical. It may appear physical, but it's not. And the remedy is 2 Chronicles 7:14, getting down on our knees, asking God to forgive us for taking God out of our schools in the 40s, for chopping up babies in the womb after Roe v. Wade. We need to come back to God's law. And what 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, that if we do this and ask for forgiveness, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. I believe that will happen. I think enough people are coming around. But it's not going to be easy. The judgment of God is not going to be pleasant. As we enter into this Christmas weekend, I want everybody to praise Jesus. Remember, Jesus is our Lord and Savior. And the whole point of this experience is to understand that actions have consequences, and that our existence doesn't end with death. The whole nature of what we're fighting is a war of good and evil that should make it clear we're fighting against principalities of evil, who today have been unleashed and are running free. But I would like us not to have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse released, because it's not going to be fun. And yet, the judgment of God will occur. And I believe God created the human race to succeed. After this, I believe there will be a great awakening. We may be in the process of a great awakening right now. As people turn from this evil to, in the spirit of Christmas, rejoice that Christ was born and he rose from the dead. It's Dr. Jerome Corsi. This is December 22nd, 2023, Friday. We will be back on the 27th. We're taking a Christmas break, so we'll be back next Thursday and Friday before New Year's. Wish everyone listening and all in America to have a blessed and happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. And thank you for joining us in 2023. We'll have a couple more broadcasts before 2024. TheTruthCentral.com. We're doing podcasts typically every weekday. And we're on a lot of channels. We're on iHeart. We're on Rumble. Take a look at the upper right-hand corner of the website, and YouTube when they occasionally allow us to be. But you can see all the channels up there that we're on. Spotify, BitChute. We're broadcasting increasingly so you can reach us both audio only or as a podcast that you can watch. Thank you for joining us. God bless.